The explosions echoed through the crystal forest like thunder. Jake Morrison pressed his back against a blue tree trunk and checked his rifle. 3 shots left. His radio crackled with static, but no voices came through. He was alone. The battle had started at dawn. Now the alien sun was setting behind the purple clouds, and Jake had no idea where his team was. He had been fighting on this strange planet for 8 months. Every day brought new horrors, new ways the enemy tried to kill him and his fellow soldiers. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead and looked around. The trees here were made of some kind of crystal that grew like glass. They made weird sounds when the wind blew through them. Everything on this planet seemed designed to kill humans. The air was thin, the gravity was too strong, and the creatures that lived here had too many teeth. He started walking east, toward where he thought the human base might be. His boots crunched on the crystal fragments that covered the ground like snow. Each step sounded too loud in the quiet forest. Jake kept his rifle ready and moved from tree to tree, always listening for enemy soldiers. The Zephyrians were smart fighters. They were taller than humans and stronger too. Their skin was different colors, purple, blue, sometimes green. They had technology that humans were still trying to understand. Most importantly, they really wanted humans dead. Jake had killed his share of them. It was war, and they were trying to kill him first, but he never felt good about it. Back on Earth, he had been a teacher. He loved working with kids and helping them learn. War had made him into something else. A sound made him stop. It was not the wind in the crystal trees. It was not one of the dangerous animals that lived here. It sounded like metal hitting metal. But broken and wrong. Jake moved toward the sound, staying low. Through the trees, he saw something that made him stop breathing for a moment. A ship had crashed. It was not a human ship. The metal was smooth and curved in ways that human ships never were. This was a Zephyrian ship, and it was completely destroyed. The ship had hit the ground hard. Pieces of it were scattered everywhere. Some parts were still smoking. Jake could see that it had been shot down, probably by human fighters. There were blast marks on the hull and holes where missiles had hit it. Jake should have walked away. Enemy ships meant enemy soldiers, and he only had 3 bullets left. But something made him move closer. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the teacher in him that always wanted to understand things. He climbed over a fallen tree and got close enough to look inside the wreck. Most of the ship was crushed, but there was one section that looked mostly whole. Jake could see movement. Inside, he raised his rifle and moved to where he could see better. What he saw made him lower his weapon in surprise. There was a Zephyrian inside the wreck, but this one was different. Most of the enemy soldiers Jake had seen wore armor and carried big weapons. This one wore clothes that looked expensive and fancy. The fabric was soft and colorful, not like military uniforms at all. The Zephyrian was also smaller than the soldiers Jake had fought. The skin was a soft purple color, and the hair was silver like moonlight. But what really got Jake's attention was that this Zephyrian was clearly hurt and clearly female. She was trapped under a piece of metal from the ship's ceiling. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Blood that looked almost black was coming from her mouth. Jake could see that she was dying. For a long moment, Jake just stared. This was the enemy. This was one of the beings that had been trying to kill humans for 3 years. His training told him to either shoot her or walk away. She would be dead soon anyway, but Jake had always been the kind of person who helped others. Even in war. Even when it was dangerous, he could not just watch someone die when he might be able to help. Jake put his rifle down and moved toward the wreck. The metal was sharp, and he cut his hands getting to where the female Zephyrian was trapped. Up close, he could see that she was even more hurt than he had thought. The metal beam across her chest was heavy. Jake had to use all his strength to lift it enough for her to breathe better. When he did, her eyes opened. They were the most beautiful. eyes Jake had ever seen. They were silver, like her hair, but they seemed to have light inside them. Right now that light was very dim. She looked at him with confusion and fear. She said something in her own language. Jake did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. She was asking who he was and what he wanted. Jake spoke quietly, the way he used to talk to scared children. "It's okay. I'm going to help you." She probably did not understand his words either, but she seemed to understand that he was not trying to hurt her. Her eyes stayed on his face as he looked at her injuries. Jake had medical training from the army. All soldiers learned how to treat wounds in battle. He could see that she had broken ribs and was bleeding inside her body. Without help, she would die in a few hours. He looked around the wreck and found a medical kit. It was Zephyrian technology, but some things were the same in any species. Bandages were bandages. Medicine for pain looked like medicine for pain. Jake worked carefully to treat her wounds. She watched him the whole time, her silver eyes full of questions. Sometimes she would say something in her language, and Jake would answer in his own language, even though neither understood the other. When he was done with the emergency treatment, Jake sat back and looked at her. She was still in bad shape, but she was not dying as quickly now. However, she needed real medical care, the kind that only a hospital could provide. The problem was that the nearest human base was 30 miles away. That was a long walk for a healthy person. Carrying someone who was badly injured would make it much harder. Jake thought about his options. He could leave her here and go get help, but she would be dead before he got back. He could stay with her, but they would both die when the Zephyrian search teams found them. The only real choice was to carry her to the human base himself. Jake knew this was crazy. She was the enemy. His own people might shoot him for helping her. She might try to kill him when she got stronger. But he could not leave her to die. He found some strong fabric in the wreck and made a carrier that would let him carry her on his back. She tried to protest when she understood what he was planning, but she was too weak to fight him. Jake picked her up as gently as he could. She was lighter than he expected, but 30 miles was still going to be a very long walk. Before he started walking, Jake looked down at her face. "I don't know if you can understand me," he said, "but I'm going to get you help. I promise." She looked back at him, and for just a moment, the light in her silver eyes seemed a little brighter. Jake Morrison, human soldier and former teacher, started walking east through the crystal forest. On his back, he carried his enemy, and he hoped he was doing the right thing. The first mile was the hardest. Jake had to learn how to walk with the injured Zephyrian on his back without hurting her more. Every step sent pain through his shoulders and back. The carrier he had made worked, but it was not perfect. The female Zephyrian drifted in and out of sleep. Sometimes she would make small sounds of pain when Jake had to climb over fallen trees or rocks. He tried to be as gentle as possible, but the terrain was rough and dangerous. After an hour of walking, Jake stopped to rest. He carefully set her down against a crystal tree and checked her wounds. The bleeding had stopped, but she was still very pale. Her breathing was better than before, but she was clearly in a lot of pain. She opened her silver eyes and looked at him. This time, she spoke in broken English. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was soft but had a musical quality that Jake had never heard before. Jake was surprised that she could speak his language. "Why what? Why help me?" she asked. "I am your enemy." Jake thought about how to answer. "Because you needed help," he said finally. "That's what we do where I come from. We help people who are hurt." She looked confused. "But I am not people. I am Zephyrian." "You're still a person," Jake said. "You think and feel and have a life. That makes you a person to me." She stared at him for a long time. "What is your name, human?" "Jake Morrison." "What's yours?" She hesitated. "You may call me Lyra," Jake nodded. "Nice to meet you, Lyra. I'm going to get you to safety, but it's going to be a long walk. Are you ready?" Lyra nodded, though Jake could see that moving hurt her. He helped her back into the carrier and started walking again. The crystal forest was full of dangers. Some of the trees were unstable and would fall without warning. Jake had to be careful where he stepped because the crystal fragments could cut through his boots. Twice he had to take long detours around areas where the trees had fallen and blocked the path. After 3 hours of walking, the sky began to change color. On this planet, storms came fast and without much warning. Jake could see dark clouds gathering in the distance. The wind was picking up, making the crystal trees sing their strange songs. "Storm coming," Jake said. Lyra lifted her head to look at the sky. "Acid rain," she said. "Very dangerous for humans." Jake cursed under his breath. He had been in acid rainstorms before. The rain on this planet was not like rain on Earth. It would burn skin and eat through clothing. They needed shelter fast. Jake started moving faster, looking for somewhere they could hide. The problem was that most of the shelters in the crystal forest were caves, and caves were where the planet's predators liked to live. The first drops of rain began to fall. Where they hit Jake's jacket, small wisps of smoke appeared. The rain was already starting to burn through the fabric. "There," Lyra said, pointing to a spot between two large crystal formations. "Small cave. Should be safe." Jake ran toward the cave, trying to keep Lyra as dry as possible. They made it inside just as the storm really began. Outside, the rain fell in sheets, making hissing sounds as it hit the crystal trees. The cave was small and dark, but it was dry. Jake carefully set Lyra down and checked her wounds again. The rough run to the cave had not helped her injuries. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "I know that hurt." Lyra shook her head. "You saved us both. I should thank you." Jake pulled out his water bottle and offered it to her. She took a small sip and handed it back. Jake realized that she was being careful not to drink too much, even though she was probably very thirsty. "Drink more," he said. "I have enough." "No," Lyra said. "You need water for the long walk. I can wait." Jake was impressed, even hurt and scared. She was thinking about his needs. He had been told that Zephyrians were selfish and cruel, but Lyra was neither of those things. The storm raged outside for 2 hours. During that time, Jake and Lyra talked. Her English was getting better as they spoke, and Jake learned that she had studied human languages. "Why did you learn English?" Jake asked. Lyra was quiet for a moment. "I wanted to understand humans. Your people are very different from mine. How are we different?" "Zephyrians think about the group first, then the individual. Humans think about the individual first. It is ... interesting." Jake thought about that. "Is that why you're surprised I helped you? Because I put you as an individual before my group?" "Yes," Lyra said. "A Zephyrian soldier would not help an enemy. It would be seen as betraying the group. But you're not betraying anyone by letting me help you?" Lyra smiled, and Jake saw that her teeth were perfectly white. "I am not a soldier. I am ... something else." Before Jake could ask what she meant, the rain stopped. The sudden silence was strange after hours of hissing and noise. Jake helped Lyra back into the carrier, and they continued their journey. The acid rain had melted some of the crystal formations, creating new obstacles. The path Jake had planned was now blocked in several places. As they walked, Lyra told Jake about her home world. She described cities that floated in the sky and oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life. She talked about her family and her education. Jake found himself fascinated by her stories. In return, Jake told Lyra about Earth. He described forests with green trees and blue oceans. He talked about his job as a teacher and how much he loved working with children. He told her about his family and his hometown. "You were a teacher?" Lyra asked. "You taught young humans?" "Yes, I taught them science and math. I loved helping them understand how the world works. And now you are a soldier. Jake's voice became sad. The war changed everything. When your people attacked our colonies, I felt like I had to fight to protect the children I used to teach. Lyra was quiet for a long time. I am sorry, she said finally. War hurts everyone. Night was falling when they encountered their first real danger. Jake heard the growling before he saw the creature. It was one of the six-legged predators that hunted in the crystal forests. The creature was about the size of a large dog, but it had armor-like scales and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Jake carefully set Lyra down behind a crystal formation and raised his rifle. He still only had 3 bullets, and he could not afford to miss. The creature circled them, looking for the best angle to attack. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, and Jake could see drool dripping from its jaws. Scare beast, Lyra whispered. Very dangerous, hunts by smell. Jake aimed carefully and fired. The bullet hit the creature in the chest, but it did not go down. Instead, it roared and charged at them. Jake fired his second shot, hitting the creature in the head. This time it fell, but Jake could hear more growling in the distance. Where there was one scare beast, there were usually more. We need to move, Jake said. Now, he helped Lyra back into the carrier and started running. Behind them, the sounds of more predators were getting closer. Jake pushed himself harder than he ever had before, jumping over obstacles and dodging between trees. After an hour of running, the sounds faded. Jake finally stopped and collapsed against a tree, breathing hard. Lyra was unconscious again, but she was still breathing. Jake looked at his rifle. 1 bullet left. 25 miles to go. He stood up, adjusted the carrier, and started walking again. The night was going to be very long. Jake had been walking for 18 hours when he finally saw the lights of Forward Operating Base Delta. His legs felt like they were made of stone, and his back was on fire from carrying Lyra for so long. But the sight of those lights gave him new energy. The human guards at the gate almost shot him. Jake was covered in dirt and blood, and he was carrying what looked like an enemy soldier. It took several minutes of shouting before they recognized him. Sergeant Morrison? One of the guards called out. Holy hell, where have you been? We thought you were dead. Jake stumbled toward the gate. I need medical help now. The guards saw Lyra on his back and raised their weapons. That's a Zephyrian, one of them said. Step away from it, Sergeant. She's injured, Jake said. She needs a doctor. It's the enemy, the guard replied. We should just shoot it. Jake's voice became hard. If you shoot her, you'll have to shoot me too. She's under my protection. The guards looked at each other uncertainly. They had never seen Jake act like this before. He was always calm and followed orders. Now he looked ready to fight his own people. Call Colonel Hayes, Jake said. Tell her it's urgent. 10 minutes later, Colonel Patricia Hayes arrived at the gate. She was a tall woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been Jake's commanding officer for 8 months, and she trusted his judgment. Morrison, she said, what the hell is going on? Jake carefully set Lyra down on a stretcher that the medics had brought. I found her in a crashed ship. She was dying. I couldn't just leave her there. Colonel Hayes looked at Lyra, who was barely conscious. Do you know what you've done? You've brought an enemy combatant into our base. I brought an injured person who needed help, Jake said. That's what humans do. The colonel studied Jake's face. She could see that he was serious about protecting the Zephyrian. Take her to the medical bay, she told the medics. But post guards. I don't want any surprises. As the medics carried Lyra away, Colonel Hayes pulled Jake aside. You need to explain this to me, all of it. Jake told her everything. He described finding the crashed ship, discovering Lyra's injuries, and making the decision to carry her 30 miles through enemy territory. He told her about the acid rainstorm, the the scare beasts, and the long night of walking. She could have killed you at any time, the colonel said. She was too hurt to kill anyone, Jake replied. Besides, she's not. Like the soldiers we've been fighting, she's different. Different how? Jake thought about how to explain it. She's educated. She speaks our language. She asks questions about our culture. I think she might be important. Colonel Hayes nodded slowly. I'll have intelligence talk to her when she's stable. But Jake, you need to understand something. Helping. The enemy could be seen as treason. There will be questions. I can live with questions, Jake said. I couldn't live with letting her die. The colonel looked at him for a long moment. Get some rest. That's an order. Jake went to his quarters and collapsed on his bunk. He was exhausted, but he could not stop thinking about Lyra. He hoped the human doctors could help her. 3 hours later, Jake was awakened by a knock on his door. It was Dr. Lisa Brown, the base's chief medical officer. Your alien friend is awake, she said. She's asking for you. Jake followed the doctor to the medical bay. Lyra was lying on a hospital bed, connected to various machines. She looked much better than she had in the forest. Her color was returning, and her breathing was normal. Jake, she said when she saw him. Her voice was stronger now. How are you feeling? He asked. Better, thanks to you and your doctors. She looked around the medical bay. Your people have been kind to me. Jake was surprised. They've been kind? Lyra nodded. The doctor explained my injuries to me. She answered my questions about human medicine. The guards brought me water when I was thirsty. I expected to be treated as a prisoner, but you treat me as a guest. Dr. Brown spoke up. Her injuries were serious. Broken ribs, internal bleeding, and a punctured lung. Without immediate care, she would have died. You saved her life, Jake. After the doctor left, Jake sat down next to Lyra's bed. There's something I need to ask you. Who are you really? You're not a regular soldier, are you? Lyra was quiet for a moment. No, I am not a soldier. My name is not just Lyra. I am Lyra Veltar, daughter of Emperor Zathmar Veltar. I am what you would call a princess of the Zephyrian Empire. Jake stared at her in shock. Your royalty? Yes, and Jake, there's something else you need to know. I was not on that ship by accident. I was traveling to a secret meeting. What kind of meeting? Lyra looked around to make sure no one was listening. A peace meeting. There are some humans and some Zephyrians who want to end this war. We were supposed to meet and discuss how to make peace between our peoples. Jake's mind was racing. You mean you want to stop the fighting? Yes, this war is destroying both of our civilizations. We are spending all our resources on weapons and soldiers instead of art and science and exploration. It has to end. But your people attacked our colonies. First, Lyra shook her head. That is what your people believe. But it is not the whole truth. The first attack was by a group of Zephyrian radicals who did not speak for our government. My father tried to stop them, but it was too late. Your people thought all Zephyrians supported the attack. So this whole war started because of a misunderstanding. Partly. Yes, and partly because both sides were afraid of each other. Fear makes people do terrible things. Jake thought about everything he had learned. What happens now? Will your people trade prisoners to get you back? Maybe, but Jake, I must tell you something else. In Zephyrian culture, when someone saves the life of a royal family member, it creates a sacred bond. We call it Velthara. It means that I owe you a debt that can only be paid with the highest honor our society can give. What kind of honor? Lyra's cheeks turned a darker shade of purple. The right to ask for anything within my power to give. Anything at all. Before Jake could respond, Colonel Hayes entered the medical bay with 2 intelligence officers. They looked serious and businesslike. Sergeant Morrison, the colonel said, we need to debrief you about this situation. And we need to question. The prisoner. I am not exactly a prisoner, Lyra said in perfect English. I am Princess Lyra Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. I was traveling under diplomatic immunity when my ship was attacked. The intelligence officers looked at each other in surprise. They had not expected to be dealing with alien royalty. Princess or not, one of them said, you are still an enemy combatant on a human military base. Lyra sat up straighter in her bed. I am a member of the royal family of a sovereign empire. I demand to be treated according to the laws of war that govern the treatment of captured dignitaries. Colonel Hayes held up her hand. Everyone calm down. We'll follow proper procedures. But Princess, you need to understand that your presence here creates a complicated situation. I understand, Lyra said. But I also see an opportunity. I was traveling to a peace meeting when I was shot down. Perhaps this accident can serve the same purpose. Jake looked back and forth between the humans and the Zephyrian princess. He realized that his simple act of compassion had started something much bigger than he had imagined. What are you suggesting? Colonel Hayes asked. Lyra looked at Jake, then at the colonel. I am suggesting that we use this situation to begin real peace negotiations. I have the authority to speak for my father, and you have the authority to speak for your military command. The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. And, Lyra continued, I have a sacred debt to repay to the human who saved my life. Perhaps that debt can help both our peoples. She looked directly at Jake. When she said this, and he saw something in her silver eyes that made his heart beat faster. Over the next 5 days, Jake spent most of his free time in the medical bay with Princess Lyra. At first, he told himself he was just checking on her recovery. But the truth was more complicated than that. Lyra was unlike anyone Jake had ever met. She was curious about everything. She asked questions about human food, human music, and human relationships. She wanted to understand how human families worked and why humans made art. On my world, Lyra explained, we create things because they serve a purpose. Buildings are made to house people. Tools are made to do work. But humans make things just because they are beautiful. This is very strange to me. Jake brought her a small flower he had found growing near the base. It was one of the few earth plants that could survive on this alien world. This flower doesn't serve any purpose except to be beautiful, he said. But it makes me happy to look at it. Lyra held the flower carefully in her hands. Her fingers were longer than human fingers, and they ended in what looked like small claws. But she touched the flower very gently. It is beautiful, she said, and now I understand why you saved me. I serve no purpose to you, but you thought saving me was the right thing to do. People don't have to serve a purpose to be worth saving. Jake said, every life has value just because it exists. Lyra looked at him with those silver eyes. This is a very human idea. My people believe that value comes from what you can do for the group. A person who cannot contribute is not valuable. What happens to people who get sick or injured on your world? They are cared for by their families if the families can afford. If not, Lyra did not finish the sentence. Jake felt sad thinking about a world where people were only valued for what they could do. That sounds lonely. It is efficient, Lyra said. But yes, it can be lonely. As the days passed, Jake learned more about Zephyrian culture. Their society was organized like a pyramid, with the royal family at the top and common workers at the coven workers at the bottom. Everyone had a specific role, and changing roles was almost impossible. I have never had a choice about my life, Lyra told him. From the day I was born, my path was decided. I would be educated, I would learn to govern, and I would marry someone chosen by my father to strengthen our empire. You've never been able to choose anything for yourself? Small things. What to wear, what to eat, what books to read. But the big things, the important things, were always decided for me. Jake tried to imagine living like that. Don't you ever want to rebel? To make your own choices? Lyra smiled. That is a very human question. Zephyrians are not taught to rebel. We are taught that the group is more important than the individual. Rebelling would be selfish, but you're here talking about peace. Isn't that a kind of rebellion? Lyra was quiet for a moment. Yes, I suppose it is. My father supports peace, but many of our military leaders do not. They think I am too young and too soft to understand war. What do you think? I think I understand war better than they do. I see what it costs us. Every ship we build for fighting is a ship we cannot use for exploring. Every soldier we train is a scientist or artist we lose. War makes us smaller, not stronger. Jake was impressed by her wisdom. You would make a good leader. I hope so. Someday I will rule part of our empire. I want to be the kind of leader who makes life better for my people, not just more organized. On the fourth day, Colonel Hayes brought news that changed everything. We've made contact with the Zephyrian fleet, she told Jake and Lyra. They want to negotiate a prisoner exchange. Lyra sat up straighter in her hospital bed. What kind of exchange? They're offering to release 20 human prisoners in exchange for you, the colonel said. It's a good deal for us. Jake felt his stomach drop. He had known this day would come, but he was not ready for it. When? Lyra asked. Tomorrow. There's a neutral zone about 50 miles from here. We'll meet there. After the colonel left, Jake and Lyra sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Lyra spoke. I do not want to go, she said quietly. Why not? You'll be safe with your own people. Lyra looked at him. Because I will never see you again. And because I have learned things here that I cannot learn anywhere else. What have you learned? I have learned what it means to choose. For the first time in my life, I can choose what I want to do and who I want to be with. I do not want to give that up. Jake's heart was beating fast. Lyra, what are you saying? I am saying that I have feelings for you, Jake Morrison. In your language, I think you would say that I love you. Jake stared at her in shock. But I'm human. You're Zephyrian. We're from different species. Does that matter to you? She asked. Jake thought about it. Over the past few days, he had started to think of Lyra not as an alien, but as a person. A person who was smart and kind and beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with what species she was. No, he said finally. It doesn't matter to me. Lyra smiled, and Jake saw that when she was happy, the markings on her skin glowed faintly. Then will you help me make a choice? What kind of choice? In Zephyrian law, I have the right to claim the Velthara debt. I can ask you for anything within my power to give, and by ancient custom, you cannot refuse. Jake remembered her mentioning this before. What would you ask for? Lyra took a deep breath. I would ask you to be my chosen mate. Jake's world seemed to stop spinning. You're what? In your culture, you might call it marriage. But it is more than that. A chosen mate is someone who shares your life completely. Someone who makes decisions with you and supports you in everything you do. But I'm not royalty. I'm just a soldier. You are the bravest, kindest person I have ever met. You risked your life to save someone you didn't even know. You carried me 30 miles through dangerous territory because you believed it was the right thing to do. That makes you more worthy than any prince or duke in my father's court. Jake's mind was racing, but what would that mean? Would I have to give up being human? No, you would still be human. But you would also be my partner in leading our people toward peace. Think about it, Jake. A human and a Zephyrian joined together. We could be the symbol that shows both species that cooperation is possible. Jake looked at her beautiful face and her glowing silver eyes. He thought about the conversations they had shared and the way she had taught him to see the world differently. He thought about the possibility of ending the war that had taken him away from his students and turned him into a killer. There's just one problem, he said. What? You said I couldn't refuse because of the ancient custom. But I don't want to be with you because I have to. I want to be with you because I choose to. Lyra's face lit up with joy. Then you are choosing? Jake took her hand in his. Her skin was warm, and he could feel a slight vibration, like a very gentle electric current. I'm choosing, he said. But are you sure this is what you want? You would be giving up your old life for someone you've only known for a few days. I have spent my whole life following rules made by other people. For once, I want to follow my heart, and my heart tells me that you are the person I want to spend my life with. Jake leaned down and kissed her gently. Her lips were softer than he had expected, and they tasted faintly of something sweet, like honey. When they broke apart, Lyra was glowing brighter than he had ever seen her. So what do we do now? Jake asked. Now we prepare to shock both of our species, Lyra said with a smile. This is going to be interesting. The next morning brought chaos to Forward Operating Base Delta. Word had spread that Princess Lyra wanted to claim an ancient right and choose a human soldier as her mate. Some soldiers thought it was wonderful. Others thought it was crazy. Most just thought it was impossible. Colonel Hayes called Jake into her office early in the morning. She looked like she had not slept all night. Morrison, she said, do you understand what you're getting yourself into? I think so, Jake replied. I'm going to marry an alien princess and try to help end a war. It's not that simple. Intelligence has been on the radio all night with command. This situation is bigger than anything we've dealt with before. If you go through with this, you won't just be Jake Morrison anymore. You'll be a symbol for both species. Jake sat down in the chair across from her desk. What do you mean? I mean that every decision you make, every word you say, will be watched by millions of humans and Zephyrians. Some will see you as a hero who helped bring peace. Others will see you as a traitor who betrayed his own species. Are you ready for that? Jake thought about his quiet life as a teacher. He had never wanted to be famous or important. He had just wanted to help children learn and grow. No, he said honestly, I'm not ready for that, but I'm ready to try. Colonel Hayes nodded. The Zephyrian fleet will be at the neutral zone in 4 hours. Princess Lyra wants to make her announcement then, in front of both sides. Command has given permission, but Jake, once you step into that neutral zone, there's no going back. I understand, do you? Because I'm not sure I do. Why are you doing this, really? Jake thought about how to explain it. Because I think she's right about the war. It's destroying both of us, and because I love her. I know that sounds crazy. But it's true. Love, the colonel said with a small smile. Well, stranger things have happened. Just not much stranger. 2 hours later, Jake and Princess Lyra were in a transport heading toward the neutral zone. Lyra was wearing formal Zephyrian robes that had been brought from her ship's wreckage. The fabric seemed to shimmer and change color in the light. She looked every inch a princess. Jake was wearing his dress uniform. He felt underdressed compared to Lyra, but she had assured him that he looked perfect. Are you nervous? She asked him. Terrified, Jake admitted. I've never done anything like this before. Neither have I in Zephyrian culture, royal mating. Ceremonies are huge events planned for months. This will be very different. Do you think your father will approve? Lyra was quiet for a moment. My father wants peace more than anyone. If he believes our union can help achieve that, he will support it. But some of his advisors will not be happy. What about your people? Will they accept a human in the royal family? Some will. Others will need time to understand. Change is always difficult, Jake. But sometimes difficult changes are the most important ones. The neutral zone was a flat area of crystal plains between the human and Zephyrian territories. When their transport arrived, Jake could see ships from both sides arranged in careful formations. The tension in the air was so thick he could almost taste it. Princess Lyra stepped out of the transport first. Jake followed her, trying to look more confident than he felt. On one side, he could see human officers and soldiers. On the other side, Zephyrian officials in elaborate uniforms waited with weapons that looked like they could destroy entire cities. In the center of the zone, a small platform had been set up. This was where prisoner exchanges usually took place. Today, it would be used for something completely different. As they walked toward the platform, Jake noticed that some of the Zephyrians were much larger than Lyra. Their skin was darker, and their uniforms suggested they were military leaders. They did not look happy. On the human side, Jake recognized General Thompson, the overall commander of human forces on the planet. He was a serious man who had been fighting this war for 3 years. He looked curious but cautious. Princess Lyra stepped onto the platform and activated a translation device that would allow both sides to understand her words. "I am Princess Lyra Veltar, daughter of Emperor Zathmir Veltar, heir to the crystal throne of the Zephyrian Empire," she began. Her voice carried clearly across the silent plain. "5 days ago, I was injured in a ship crash. I was found by Sergeant Jake Morrison of the human military. He could have left me to die or captured me for intelligence purposes. Instead, he carried me 30 miles through dangerous territory to get me medical help." Jake saw some of the human soldiers nodding. Word of his journey had spread through the ranks. "According to ancient Zephyrian law," Lyra continued, "this act creates a sacred debt called Velthara. Sergeant Morrison has the right to ask anything of me that is within my power to give." One of the Zephyrian military leaders stepped forward. "Princess, this human has no understanding of our customs. Surely you cannot be bound by a debt he does not comprehend." Lyra's voice became firm. "General Korth, the law is clear. The debt exists whether the human understands it or not." "General." Thompson spoke up from the human side. "What exactly are you proposing, Princess?" "I am proposing to exercise my right under Zephyrian law to choose my own mate. I choose Sergeant Jake Morrison." The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Then everyone started talking at once. "Impossible," General Korth said. "A royal cannot mate with an alien." "This could be seen as an act of treason," General Thompson added. Jake stepped forward. His voice was not as loud as Lyra's, but it was steady. "With respect to both sides, this is not about treason or impossibility. This is about choice." He looked at the humans, then at the Zephyrians. "For 3 years, we've been killing each other. We've destroyed cities, wiped out colonies, and turned this beautiful planet into a battlefield. Why? Because we're afraid of each other." Jake pointed to Lyra. "But I'm not afraid of her. I've seen her kindness, her intelligence, and her strength. She's not my enemy. She's the person I want to spend my life with." "And I'm not afraid of him," Lyra added. "Jake Morrison represents everything good about humanity. Their courage, their compassion, and their ability to choose what is right over what is easy." General Korth's voice was angry. "This is madness. You cannot build peace on the fantasy of love between species." "Why not?" Jake asked. "If a human and a Zephyrian can love each other, why can't our peoples live in peace?" General Thompson looked thoughtful. "Are you saying this marriage would be part of a peace treaty?" Lyra nodded. "Exactly. Jake and I want our union to be the foundation for real negotiations between our species. We want to show both sides that cooperation is possible, and if the marriage fails..." General Korth asked Jake took Lyra's hand. "Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But we're not planning to fail." Lyra activated a communication device and spoke in her own language. After a few moments, a voice responded. Jake could not understand the words, but he could hear authority in the tone. "My father has given his blessing," Lyra announced. "Emperor Zathmir Veltar approves this union and authorizes me to begin peace negotiations on behalf of the Zephyrian Empire." General Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Then, He activated his own communication device. After several minutes of conversation, he nodded. "Command has authorized me to begin preliminary peace talks," he said. "This is unprecedented, but then again, so is everything else about this situation." As the sun set over the Crystal Plains, Jake Morrison and Princess Lyra Veltar were married in a ceremony that combined human and Zephyrian traditions. The wedding was witnessed by soldiers and diplomats from both species. That it was not the end of the war. There would be months of difficult negotiations ahead. Some people on both sides would never accept the union or the peace it represented. But it was a beginning. That night, as Jake and Lyra sat together watching the alien stars, she asked him if he regretted his choice. "No," Jake said, holding her close. "I think this is the best choice I've ever made, even though it will change." "Your entire life?" Jake smiled. "My life changed the moment I decided to save yours. Everything since then has just been following that choice to its logical conclusion." Lyra glowed softly in the darkness. "I love you, Jake Morrison." "I love you too, Princess Lyra, and I think we're going to change the galaxy." Above them, ships from both fleets began to move away from their battle positions for the first time. In 3 years, the war was not over, but for the first time, peace seemed possible. It had all started with one human soldier who chose compassion over hatred, and one alien princess who chose love over duty. Sometimes the smallest choices really do change everything.